Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another New World video. In today's video, we are going to be going over my Ice Gauntlet Rapier Assassin Ice Mage build. This Rapier build is going to be focused around Ice Spike and trying to get as many one-shots as possible. You can escape almost any situation with Fletch and Tomb, and you have so much survival with these abilities as well. As always, there is going to be a bunch of different timestamps in the description below, so feel free to move as you please. Before we get into the video though, I want to say thank you so much for 1,050 subs. We have hit my goal of the year, and once again, thank you. Now without further ado, let's get right into the video. The first thing we are going to talk about today is the attribute page. There was only one option to take, and that is going to be 150 Constitution with the rest Intelligence. This is going to optimize our Ice Gauntlet damage to have the highest amount of Ice Spike damage, as well as give us a little bit of Rapier damage. With this setup, our Rapier is not going to be doing as much damage as a Dex build. However, in return, we do get that burst with the Ice Gauntlet, which is what we are going for. Later down the line, I'm going to make another build as well, focusing more on the Rapier, but today is going to be focused on the Ice Spike part of this build. Moving on to the gear, it is going to be extremely simple to talk about. It is going to come down to two weapon perks, and that is going to be Unending Thought on the armor and Omnidirectional Evade on the weapon or armor as well. After we get those two weapon perks, it is going to come down to 5 Resilience and the rest Refreshing with a third perk of your choice. I'm going to show you guys my gear from top to bottom and explain why I have chose this piece and why you should get this piece as well, and maybe something I would change about this piece. So moving on, let's talk about the headpiece here. We do have the Resilience, Refreshing, and Physical Aversion piece from the recent event. I believe it's the Wispy Bloom event. You can buy this 600 gear score pattern and roll these yourself. They are extremely easy to roll and something I would recommend. The only thing I would say though is that I would prioritize Elemental Aversion over Physical Aversion. Okay, Resilient and Refreshing are mandatory for this build as well, and the third perk of my choice and the choice I would recommend for you is going to be Elemental Aversion. But since I do not have that piece, Physical Aversion in light armor is going to be my next best option, so this is what I have opted to take. Moving on to the chest piece here, once again, Resilient, Refreshing, and Physical Aversion. Once again though, prioritize Elemental Aversion over Physical Aversion if you can. We do have the Resilient, Refreshing, and Unending Thought piece. You could go for Resilient, Elemental Aversion, or Physical Aversion and Unending Thought as well. For the legs here, we do have Resilient, Refreshing, and Elemental Aversion, and for the feet here, we do have Resilient, Refreshing, and Elemental Aversion as well. So as you can see with this build, we want to be stacking as much Refreshing as possible. We have one piece here, we have two pieces here, we have three pieces here, we have four pieces here, and we have 5 pieces on our armor, and that is going to make sure that we do get our Ice Spike and Rapier cooldowns up as fast as possible. Now moving on to the jewelry, we do have a few options for the amulets, and that is going to be the first option, which I do recommend for the highest amount of damage output, is going to be the Champion's Amulets, health, stamina recovery, and the damage perk, Shrinking in Power. There is many amulets you can grab if you have. Some people would opt to get rid of Shrinking in Power for a thrust protection, a flame protection. If you like that and you have that, stick with that, it's okay. I'm just recommending Champion's Amulet for damage here. We already have so much survival with Rapier and Ice Gauntlet and Tomb. Moving on to the ring here, there is no other option than the Champion's Ring, Hardy, Keen Awareness, and Invigorated Punishment for our Ice Spike damage. Really nothing else to talk about there. Lastly, for our earring, we have the Healthy Toast, Refreshing, and Refreshing Toast. The two mandatory perks here is going to be Refreshing and Healthy Toast. If you can get a third perk, make it Refreshing. If not, then choose your third perk of choice. Now moving on to the weapons, we have the Rapier. The 3 perks of choice on my Rapier is going to be Vicious, Omnidirectional Evade, and Keenly Jagged. I would say if you do have this Rapier in a different form, Vicious, Attunement, and Keenly Jagged is going to be your best in slot Rapier. I'm going to say that one more time. Vicious, Attunement, and Keenly Jagged. Preferably Frost Attunement. If you can put Omnidirectional Evade on an armor piece, that would be a lot more damage comparatively on the weapon, but unfortunately for me, I do not have an armor piece with Omnidirectional Evade that is best, so I have opted to take this on my weapon, which is not bad by any means, okay? Vicious, Omni Evade, and Keenly Jagged is going to be your second best in slot option, and your first best in slot option is going to be Vicious, Attunement, and Keenly Jagged. As for why we take Keenly Jagged over Keenly Empowered, we are not really going to be sticking with our Rapier for the main source of burst. That is going to be our Ice Gauntlet. So unfortunately, since we have to swap weapons, we're not going to keep that Keenly Empowered with our Rapier moving over to our Ice Gauntlet. Comparatively to Keenly Jagged, the Keenly Jagged blade is going to stick on the target if we do swap to our Ice Gauntlet. So that is overall going to increase our damage as well. Moving on to the Ice Gauntlet here, we have the best in slot Keen, Vicious, and Frost Attunement. If you can get this Ice Gauntlet, this is going to be the best Ice Gauntlet for critical striking your Ice spikes with the max amount of damage. The second best in slot option here today is going to be the Keen, Vicious, and Iced Refresh Gauntlet. Some might actually prefer this over the Keen, Vicious, and Attunement one, simply because you get to reduce all of your ice cooldowns by 75%, which scales very, very well with the amount of refreshing that we run, which is going to be ideally 5+ refreshing on our gear. Moving on to the Heartrune here, there is no better option of 1vxing than the Stalwart Heartrune of Stone Form. It is going to heal us for 75% Heartrune damage per second while active, as well as give us a little bit of armor with that Fortify. For the jump split here, we want to make sure that our ice damage is at max damage possible, so we want to have 5 Rune Glass of Frozen Opal or Onyx. I prefer to put Onyx in my armor, that way I'm kind of resistant to as much physical damage as possible from the bows, the warhammers, the greatswords. Pretty much everything is going to be covered here. As you guys see, we have 10% physical damage resistance across the board. In the armor, sorry, in the jewelry, I decided to just put opals here. You could slot rubies if you're really struggling against fire staffs, but if you do have enough elemental version in your armor here, it's not going to be that big of a problem. Moving on to the build trees here, we are going to go over the Rapier build tree first. We are going to be playing with Evade, Fletch, and Flourish and Finish. Some of the perks that you could change here would be Swagger. You could take out Swagger and put it in Perfectionist. This is going to increase your damage by 10% when your health is full. The reason why I don't have it set up here with Perfectionist is because that health full requirement, you're going to be in a lot of fights where your health is not full, so you're not going to be getting full value. And Swagger here, gain 20 stamina when successfully hitting a target with Finish. So if you do get a Flourish and Finish off and that Finish procs, you are going to be getting that stamina, which in my opinion is a lot more valuable than potentially getting 10% damage when your health is full. It's just a very iffy talent, so I just decided to not take it. Some key perks here with this build is going to be the Controlled Breathing. You get 3 stamina on hits. Same thing here with Red Currents. Critical Strikes reduce your cooldowns by 5%, and up here as well, Refreshing Strikes reduce all the Rapier cooldowns by 1% on any hit. Since we stack Refreshing, it's exponential, and these perks here, Red Curtains and Refreshing Strikes, work extremely well with our refreshing setup. Last but not least, we have Momentum here, the bread and butter of the Rapier kit. It's going to work very well with Evade because of the Crescendo perk here. Individual successful light attacks reduce the cooldown of this ability by 30% each. So basically, by 2 or 3 auto attacks, you're going to have your Evade fully up and ready to go, which is going to increase your damage by 30% per light attack. Now, moving on to the Ice Gauntlet here, we have the Ice Spikes, the Ice Storm, and the Entomb build going on here. Once again, like the Rapier build, we do have an extra point that we can kind of put wherever we want. I decided to put the last point here in Cold Reach, but you could take the point out of Cold Reach and put it into Defiant Freeze if you do want the extra Fortify. But in the previous patch here, they changed Fortify up to where it's kind of bad on light armor. So any sort of Fortify now that you have is kind of bad. By bad, I mean that it scales off your actual armor values down here. So it would scale off of your physical and elemental here. 771.3 is what I have in my app currently. So it would be 20% of that instead of that 20% flat Fortify that you did get last patch. So I decided to take this point out of here and put it up here in Cold Reach for that extra damage. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now that we've gone through pretty much everything we need to know about the build, let's talk about what makes this build good and how to play the builds. First things first, however, let's actually open up our Rapier skill tree here and kind of go through each ability and see what they do that's special and what we can do to min-max our usage of them. So first off, we have Evade. Perform a small reliable sidestep in your current movement direction that cancels any current activity and provides momentary invulnerability. Light attacks made during Evade are performed exceptionally fast. So some key takeaways from Evade is that you go invulnerable every time you cast it for a short time, and that every time you light attack after an Evade, it's very fast. I'm going to show one more time here. We're going to Evade and then light attack. That light attack is extremely fast, and we also get a little bit of invulnerability frames there. So how do we use Evade properly? There's many ways to use Evades, and some ways are actually more inefficient than others, and we're going to talk about those right now. First things first with Evade is that there's 4 different directions you can go. You can go forward, just like that. You can go right, just like that. And you can also go left, just like that. And last but not least, you can go backwards. The backwards evade that I just did is going to be the evade that you want to use when you're running away or kiting someone, as it covers the most amount of distance. This backwards evade, it covers about 5 meters of distance, and as you can see here, comparatively, the forward evade you get about 2 to 3 meters of distance. Now that we got that movement down with evade, let's check about some of the perks that we have here. Some of the most important perks is crescendo. Every individual light attack reduces the cooldown of this ability by 30% each. So here, let me use my evade here. As you see, it's at 8 seconds. Every auto attack is going to reduce it by 30%. So now it's back up pretty much after 1 or 2 hits. Next up is Allegro. Gain 20% haste for 3 seconds after successfully evading through an enemy attack. So pretty much you're gonna have to use evade to dodge through people's abilities. Think of this evade as a dodge, right? Like I said earlier, if someone is casting an ability on you, you want to use this to evade, and you're going to be getting haste. Alongside haste, you also get this breathe in perk, which is going to increase your stamina by 20 after successfully evading through an enemy attack. So not only do you get 20% haste, you also get 20 flat stamina, which once again, flat stamina in this game is insanely broken, especially with the build like Rapier that relies on stamina. So keep that in mind and make sure that you're successfully evading through enemies' attacks. The most important part of evade though is Adagio. Of course, evading forward gains 15% increased damage on your next light attack, ends on hit or after 1 second. With Adagio, if you do have omnidirectional evade, this Adagio upgrade is going to apply in any direction, so left, right, forward, backwards, whatever you do. And this is what makes this ability so freaking strong. Every time you cast evade, you are going to be getting not only the 15% Adagio bonus, you're also getting the 30% momentum bonus, okay? Next up, the ability I want to talk about here is Flourish and Finish. Flourish performs an attack dealing 60% weapon damage, staggering and pushing back enemies. Pressing light attack at the end of Flourish will perform the follow-up attack Finish. Finish lunges forward, dealing 120% direct weapon damage and consumes all Rapier bleeds on any target, dealing 110% of their damage immediately. Healing Jagged does not proc Flourish and Finish, so we do not need to worry about this build here. The bleed build here, and we do not have Tondo, right? So the main core takeaways here is that you want to stagger the enemies and push them back, and you can either confirm the stagger and push back by going forward here. So example, say if this guy's hitting me, I'm going to stagger him here with Flourish here. So I'm going to flourish, and I'm going to confirm that stagger with the finish here. The other version is going to stagger them with the flourish, and then you can escape with the finish. So if you stagger them here and you look back, you can kind of go backwards here and evade all of this pressure here by gaining a lot of distance. The other perk under flourish and finish is going to be swagger. Gain 20 stamina when successfully hitting a target with finish. So like I said here, if you want to confirm the flourish with a finish, you are going to be getting 20 stamina. So keep that in mind when you do take the swagger perk here. Last but not least, we have the Fletch ability, my personal favorite ability in the game. Leave the ground lunging forward for 10 meters in a stabbing motion and pierce through enemies, dealing 145% weapon damage. Pretty much it's one of the highest burst mobility abilities in the game. That was hard to say, mobility abilities in the game, just because of the high base damage. 145% weapon damage is insanely high, but it also has a second part to it. Interruption. Pressing a light attack at any time during Fletch will stop and perform a static continuation attack, dealing 115% damage. I'm going to show you what that looks like here. So I'm going to Fletch here and then interrupt it. As you guys see here, my character stabs the rapier at the end of the Fletch animation for that continuous attack. So some key takeaways from this ability is that it's your highest movement ability, and you can interrupt it with interruption here to get more damage. I'll show you what that combo looks like in a bit here, but keep in mind here as well with backside, after performing Fletch, your next critical strike within 5 seconds will deal 15% more damage. So if you do get a critical strike with Fletch at the start here and you interrupt it in the back, you're going to be getting so much damage, right? Because it scales with Vicious here, and you're going to be getting 15% critical strike damage on your next attack after that. It just scales so well with critical strike and critical damage. The other part here, quick lunge, killing with this ability reduces its cooldown by 80%. And since we stack a lot of refreshing in our build, it's going to 100%, baby. That's how this build works. We love refreshing in this build. So anyways, that's all the Rapier abilities here. Now we're going to move on to the Ice Gauntlet here shortly. But before we do that, I want to go over some combos with the Rapier. The main combo with Rapier is going to be revolved around your evade, and it's going to be the auto evade forward auto. It's going to be getting the 2 quick autos here. It's the highest burst in the game for getting quick bursts. Auto, evade, auto. The other combo with this build is going to be the auto, evade, auto, flourish, and finish. Very high skill cap combo, but this is very dangerous too, because the enemies can dodge within your auto, evade, auto, and your flourish and finish might not get confirmed. So keep that in mind here. The last combo we are going to do is going to incorporate the first combo and the second combo with your Fletch to give it one nice fluid animation. It is a very slick and clean combo, but once again, it is very hard to do. You can 100% confirm it on low stam targets, so keep that in mind as well when you are chasing someone. You always want to be using your combos on low stam targets because they can't dodge out of your animation. So the combo is going to start off with Fletch. You're going to engage with Fletch. You're going to interrupt the Fletch with the interrupt ability, which is just pressing left click at the end of your Fletch. You're going to evade forward, you're going to auto, and then you're going to flourish and finish. It's going to look something very simple like this. Very, very clean combo. It's one of the hardest combos to do because it's very, very high, fast APM and you got to click a lot. But once you do get it down, very, very fun to do and very simple. We're going to do it one more time just to show you guys on this right side dummy here. So we're going to fletch, evade forward, auto, and then flourish and finish. Very, very simple combo. Very good. Good to go. Now let's move on to the Ice Gauntlet combos here. There's really not a lot of combos and tips to talk about. It's really going to be going over just the passives here. We have about 4 passives I do want to talk about, and that's going to be the blocking stamina, the refreshing frost, the heavy freeze, and the critical frost. So starting with the blocking stamina, it pretty much converts your stamina to 15 stamina. That's 15 flat stamina, by the way, which is insane. So if you ever need to block with your Ice Gauntlet, you will keep so much stamina. It's crazy. This is a very, very broken passive. I don't know how this hasn't been nerfed yet, but make sure you guys don't tell the devs that, because this is very, very strong for blocking. The other perk here, refreshing frost, reduce the cooldown of all Ice Gauntlet abilities by 20% when casting an ability in a frosted area. So pretty much if you're in your own shower or storm like this and you cast abilities inside here, your cooldown will be getting reduced by 20% each time. The other passive here, heavy freeze, heavy attacks will root a target for 1 second if they are standing in ice storm or have frostbite. So if you storm here and you heavy attack someone inside here, they will get rooted for 1 second. We do take unending thaw to increase our storm damage as well, but also the big part that we take this for is because the frost effect remains on enemies for 2 seconds after exiting ice storm. That allows us to hit enemies with heavy freeze that are out of ice storm. The other big passive here is critical frost, increase critical chance by 15% when hitting an enemy in a frosted area. So once again, in the storm, just like this, is really where you want to get your main combos off, especially with your spike. If you hit someone with a spike in your storm, you will pretty much one-shot them. Ice spike does crazy damage. And last but not least, ultimate shield. Ice Gauntlet abilities shield targets, increasing ice damage dealt to the target by 25% for 3 seconds. This is what makes Ice Spike so dangerous, because we stack all of this ice damage in critical strike and vicious and frost attunement just to get this Ice Spike to do the max amount of damage possible. And you want to make sure that they are frosted before you do that. And how you make that happen is making sure that they're just in a storm, right? So every time you storm here, this is prime time for a spike. You want to get a spike every time they're inside the storm. So that pretty much boils down to the main combo, which is going to be storm into a spike. Okay. So keep that in mind. So that's pretty much it, guys. Like, we went over everything gear. We pretty much attributes, gear, perks, gems. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments below. And if this video helped you or you enjoyed this build guide, please don't forget to leave a like and to subscribe as well. It really does help the channel. And once again, thank you guys so much for the recent support. I love y'all. Peace, baby.